Hello there, it's Rob McMahon again with my third video. This one is relatively general, and I hope to try and keep it quite short. So I want to talk about work habits and routines, and as part of that, think about things like time management and setting goals, etc. So let me just run through, I suppose, some of the challenges you would have in any given week. Now, the first thing you've got to manage, I suppose, is what's happening when. So the easy way to work, and something that you can do with the help of teachers and that you may be used to doing because you've had a lot of support, whether you've realised it or not, in terms of routines, etc., is look at a piece of work, start working on it, get it done, then think about what's coming next, and there would be no sense of sequencing your work. Now, the first thing I would do, I would counsel you to think about your entire working week. So from walking out of one tutorial to the point of walking into the next tutorial, which is going to be on average, it's going to be 7 days in between them. So let's think about having 2 tutorials a week. Now, for some of you, you will have, whether you're doing languages, whether you're doing history, whether you're doing English, the demands in any given week will vary somewhat, but the principles are the same. So the first thing I would say is, at some point in your working week, it might be a Sunday morning, whenever it happens to be a Monday morning, sit down and plan out. I would probably counsel you to do this on a Saturday or a Sunday. Plan out what lectures have you got, when do they fall, then plan out what have you got in terms of your 2 tutorials, and then any other demands on your time. Now, it might be that you are an avid rower. It might be that you are a member of a role-playing society. It may be that you are in the Oxford University Chamber Orchestra. Well, I can't begin to imagine how busy you guys are. Whatever it is that you do, absolutely fine. But work out how much time you're giving that. Work out when you're going to have chunks of time that are dedicated to non-academic stuff. If you've got a football match, it depends on the season. If you've got a football match coming out, that's going to wipe out 3 hours of your time. Getting there, getting back, half-time, etc. You might have a lacrosse match. You might have a rehearsal for a play that you're writing, directing, starring in, etc. So work out the week you've got. That's the first thing to do. So have a plan of sorts. The second thing with a plan, put lots of free time in it, so empty space. Things have a habit of getting in the way. The work that you wanted to get through, you were unrealistic in terms of it wasn't a 1-hour task, it was a 2-hour task. The play ran over. You just actually went to the pub. Whatever it happens to be, stuff happens. So factor in some empty spaces where you think, okay, I'm not going to get all this done now, but on Thursday between 2 and 4, I did have that spare time, which said, things that I might need to do that I wasn't expecting to do. So put into your timetable empty space. The next thing I'd say about a timetable is it doesn't have to be like the revision timetable that you probably wrote in the hope that you would get to sit A-levels. And of course, I'm cognizant of where we are with that today as I speak. The Gavin Williamson announcement, it being August 17. But think about a timetable which is not a tyranny. So a timetable to give you, some of you might really like to lock everything down. Others might just be sort of free form. So go for something that is quite general, that will remind you of what's happening when. Then work backwards. If the essay is due on Thursday at 2, and I've got lectures on Thursday morning, ideally I'll get it written before supper on a Wednesday, before hall on a Wednesday if you go into hall. It might be that you're going to write it on the Thursday morning, in which case you ain't going to lectures if you're writing an essay on a Thursday morning. Writing right up against the wire, writing it at 1:30, skipping lunch, and getting into tutorial is suboptimal, to use an economic term. So try and work out, when am I going to start writing the essay? How long am I going to give it? If you say I'm going to give it 7 hours, I'm telling you you're giving too long to writing the essay. Depending on the type of essay and how long it is, 2 to 3 hours should be absolutely sufficient to type or to handwrite an essay. So don't overcook it in terms of writing something very long, although I will come back to that in terms of noting and reading next time. So in terms of timetables, be kind to yourself. One of the maxims I keep coming back to in terms of a timetable that shouldn't be tyranny, but a timetable that gives you a sense of what's happening when. Use a timetable to impose discipline. Some of you will have it, some of you will not, by which I mean you will allow time just to move. And this PDF, this paper, the professor wouldn't have put it on the reading list if it wasn't the best thing ever, so I'm going to read it cover to cover. If it takes me 6 hours, it takes me 6 hours. Then where you get to is I'm falling behind. Okay, well, where can I find some time? The obvious answer is unconsciousness. What I'll do is I'll sleep less, I'll eat less, I'll give up on the exercise, I won't see friends. All of which you know is a path to being miserable, which feeds into talking about mental wellness and mental health. So do not be undisciplined with your time. If something is going to take you 2 hours, okay, but if you think it's going to take you 4, well, you gave it 2. You're going to have to do a less good job on it, and there are ways of becoming more efficient. So think about time management in terms of having a plan, having a sense of when the deadlines fall. Deadlines are not met for a 10 a.m. tutorial by starting to write at 2 in the morning. That is never a bad idea. The dreaded all-nighter is a different way of saying you cannot manage your time properly. There should never be a reason for an all-nighter. I know that's easy to say, but I am just right. You should not be writing when you should be sleeping. Once you get into that habit, you'll start to shift your entire frame. So in terms of good work habits, I'll get up at 10. Okay, well now it's 11 because I work till 7 in the morning. Then I'll get up at 3 in the afternoon. And then it starts to go, as human beings, we are programmed in terms of circadian rhythms, etc. We are programmed to operate in daylight hours, not nighttime hours. In terms of your friendship groups, the things that you're doing, if you start sleeping in the day and working at night, you can't socialise, you can't go to the pubs or the plays, whatever it is you need to do. So in terms of good time management, you have to have routines. They do not have to be tyrannical. They do not have to be locked down. They will range from the incredibly precise for some of you to the more free-form for others. But there has to be a sense of, I know on Sunday morning what I've got coming up in the next 5 days, when the lectures are, when the tutorials are, when to start writing, when to submit. If I find it hard to manage my time, if I find it hard to remember this kind of stuff, then think about what help can you get. So we all have phones now. Some of us have iPads or PCs or laptops. We all have phones. Use Google Calendar. Use the calendar on Outlook if that's your thing. As soon as you get a tutorial essay and you've got certain deadlines and things to remember, put it into your calendar, be it Google, be it Outlook, or whatever it is you use. Put reminders on. Put a reminder for an hour before if you think you're going to just fresh air on a tutorial. Put a reminder 24 hours before to say, I need to start writing. Put reminders on in terms of, we're halfway through the week. We need to be moving from the English Essay 1 to English Essay 2, or moving from the French Literature Essay into the work for the seminar group or whatever. If there are things that you think you will forget, put them into your phone. If you can remember one thing, pick a time. Maybe it's Saturday morning, Sunday morning. This is when I set up my working week. This is when I use my phone to hold in my head the things that some of us can keep in our heads. If you're like me, you might struggle to. It doesn't have to be hard deadlines in terms of tutorial at 2 on Thursday with Professor Fraser. It can be, don't forget, the lectures at 9 and 11 in the economics faculty, or that I've got one in the, history fac and one somewhere else. So if you think you're going to forget your lectures, set alarms that will wake you up, that will remind you of this. The final thing I'd say in terms of good work habits really is, as you become more used to Oxford and hopefully you make friendship groups, start to use your friends as kind of sounding boards. How do you manage your time? Have you got any tricks for doing this? Or you might be of help to them. So as you become more confident in sharing your perceived weaknesses, I'm not very good at managing my time. Talk to friends about it. And of course, if you want, to have a session with Deirdre, with me, about formally thinking about this kind of these kinds of challenges, do. But I haven't said this in previous talks, and I should have said it in talk 1. But in addition to talking to me, talking to Deirdre, Dr. Morrissey, if you have a look at OSSG, the Oxford Study Skills Group, it's a website that anyone can access. If you have a university email, you can then have a login. An awful lot of the materials that I might show to you guys about routines, about work habits, about physical spaces to work, about why arguably it's a bad idea to have music on while you work, although there is some evidence that non-intrusive music, so I suppose classical music, etc., or ambient stuff at a low volume may be tolerable for some of you. But go onto the Oxford Study Skills website and have a look at the fantastic resources they have about managing time, making routines, having a good place to work, getting your workplace sorted. Now, it might be that in terms of coming from home, some of us have lots of space, some of us have very little space. Some of us have no siblings or distractions. Some of us have the noise of cars passing, traffic sirens, goodness knows what. Oxford colleges have that huge advantage that study spaces are relatively tranquil places. So make the most of that. Have a sense of a place that you sit down and you enter a certain kind of framework in terms of it's calming. I know what I'm doing. I know how long to give to each chapter of my working week. I know from my Google Calendar, from my phone, when I start, when I stop. Be kind to yourself, but also be incredibly disciplined. If you said it was 2 hours on this and then I need to move on to something else, then it's 2 hours. If you start with bad habits, which would be allowing things to run over into other spaces that you've allocated, then it will snowball into the essay crises, staying up late. And that is a habit you do not want to acquire at all. If you find you're doing it with week 2 or week 3, then the essay's shorter. You think you'll do a less good job in a tutorial. If you turn up tired to a tutorial, I guarantee from my experience of the tutor side of it, you will be incoherent. You will think you've done a really good thing, you stayed up late, you got the essay done. I would rather the essay were less good and you slept and you protect your physical and mental well-being, and the tutorial will go better. Finally, if this is not the third final thing I've said, finally, if you are having a problem, then 2 or 3 days out, get in contact with your tutor. It might be an email, it might be a phone call, probably an email, saying, look, Professor so this is where I am, what would you suggest? Talk to your tutors ahead of time if you've got some kind of challenge, or come to us or talk to the welfare officer, talk to anyone that you think would be useful. Don't suffer in silence and just assume that somehow the problem will go away. If you're falling behind for whatever reason, something happens you weren't expecting, let us know, let them know. But the professional thing is to fess up, if you like, fess up ahead of time and let us help you to manage whatever challenge it is. Okay. I haven't got that many more talks, so thank you for staying with me. In the next session, I'll talk about noting and reading. And then I will have a session on essay writing. I won't say too much about managing anxiety or stress in a session now. But I'll just make some references to it as I go. Okay, speak to you soon. Thank you.